Hey guys, this is Tori Hope Petersen with the I Love You Already podcast, where we talk about how to live and love well. And today I get to interview Alicia Britt Chole. You guys are going to want to listen to this conversation. We talk about mentorship, botox. We dive into the first time that we met, which was a critical part in my faith journey. Let's do it. Alicia Britt Chole, I am so excited to have you on the I Love You Already podcast.
Oh, I'm so grateful to get some time with you, Tori. Thank you for the opportunity.
When I saw your face come up, I just couldn't stop smiling. I am so happy that you're here. We start every podcast with the same question, and that is, what is one act of love that you have received in your lifetime that has affected who you are?
Yes. And I'm so grateful for the heads up on that because it really helped me think through. I'm so grateful to be so loved by those closest to me. So I'm going to select a memory from my eldest son when he was around 6 or 7 years old. And so my eldest son has autism, and he didn't start speaking till he was 4 or 5, his first little words. And so, but by the time he was 6 or 7, he could do whole sentences. And one day, Tori, we were outside, and my husband, we live out in the country, and he was doing a little bonfire to get rid of some extra wood that we had. And so my son didn't have that kind of built-in danger sensor that my other children do. And so, I was being very careful teaching him about fire, helping him know safe distances. And he said, but what happens if I get too close? And I said, well, sweetheart, if you get too close, you could get burned. And he said, if I got super burned, could I die? And I said, well, actually, yes, people can die from being burned, depending on how severe it is. And then he looked at me, Tori, straight in the eye, and he said, oh, Mom, one day, are you going to die? And this was not where I expected the conversation to go. And so I took a big breath and I just very calmly said, yes, love, one day it will be my time and I will die and I will go to be in heaven with Jesus and I'll wait for you there. And Jonathan started to talk and he said, I need to think, Mom. And so he walked and walked and walked, which is how he processed. And I could tell I really needed to pay attention to the next words that came out of his mouth because I thought this is going to give me an indication of whether my son has a hope that will outlast this lifetime. So after a while, Jonathan, he was ready. He said, okay, Mom, here's the deal. It's okay if you die. It's okay if you go to heaven, but I want to be the one who carries you there. Tori, it was an overwhelming image of how deeply he loved me.
Yeah.
And he really has, through both his special needs and his special strengths. Jonathan has helped carry me to heaven.
That is so sweet. And I think about a scripture where Jesus tells his disciples, he says, I'm going to make a place for you and I'm going to come back for you. And he's like, I'm bringing you. And that's like, It's like your son's words were a reflection of God's. Like he's going to come back for us and he's taking us there. He's preparing a place for us. Wow, that's so sweet that at such a young age, he could just know that and feel that that's what he wanted to do for you.
Yes.
I wanted to tell a story about how you've shown love to me. It is the first and only time that we've ever met in person. Me and Alicia, we were both at a retreat or a conference. And I really was like, I don't know if I'm going to go to this conference because we speak at a lot of conferences and you can just get really conferenced out. But I decided like the last minute that I was going to go to this, booked my tickets last minute because I really felt like the Lord was like, you're going to go to this one. And I was like, I go to so many, but okay, I guess I'm going to go to this one. And you were speaking and we were in worship and you invited us to you invited us into a physical posture or to do something physical. Do you remember why you invited us to do that?
I think it had to do with how when we pair something physical with something spiritual, that it's just a mnemonic. It helps us remember and it helps us focus. So I think I was saying something like, if everyone would please just think about some physical thing you can do that's sort of a symbol or reminder of what God is calling you spiritually to do.
Yeah. And that is pretty much how I remember it. And I was like, okay, ask the Lord, what physical thing do you want me to do? I sat down, and that wasn't the physical thing that he wanted me to do. I just sat down to think about it. And I had a pencil in my hand, and I really felt like the Lord said, break the pencil. And I was like, okay, there are people sitting by me, first off, God. And these people are going to think I'm like, I have anger issues or that I'm like psychotic. I'm like, break. And it's a pencil that the conference gave us, like to take our notes. That would also just be rude. And in that kind of argument with God, he was like, this is the problem. You care more about what people think than what I think. And I was just like, oh. And he was like, you need to surrender that. Go to the altar and surrender it and break the pencil. And I mean, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I was just sitting, And when you don't obey God in worship, when you don't do what he's telling you to do, then that's all you think of. You can't even actually worship. And he was just like, go to the altar, surrender, break the pencil. And I was like, I don't understand the point of breaking the pencil. And he was like, because we're going to break the insecurity. We're going to break the lies of all that you listen to from people instead of me. And so I sat there for a really long time. I was happy worship went as long as it did because I was really fighting with God. And I was like, I'm not going up there. And then he was like, well, then ask someone to help you. And I was like, this is just getting, like, it was like, I feel like his request, like the more that I fought, the bigger his request was getting. Like, I'm like, okay, it's going to be personal. And this person's really going to think that I'm crazy. But I was like, just kept wrestling, finally went up. I sat by you. And I was so terrified. I was like, I'm not actually going to ask her. And then there was another worship leader who said something like, whoever you're sitting next to, put your hand on and start praying for them. And so you put your hand on me and you were like, what can I pray for you for? And I just broke down. I was like, I think God wants you to break this pencil with me. And okay, here's the thing, Alicia. You didn't think I was crazy. You didn't think I was crazy at all. And you started praying for me. And it was literally like, I know that God gave you the words for me to hear. And we broke the pencil together. And that was an Ebenezer stone for me. Like that was a stake in the sand in my faith journey, in my ministry journey. I've been very fortunate, I feel, in my ministry journey to know what God has called me to do. And like, I think a lot of times, especially with people who are young, they like question and like, I know it, but I'm like, are you sure? And I feel like that was just a time that God was like, you're going to be sure and you're going to be confident, not in yourself, but in me. And you just helped me break the pencil. It was such an incredible memory, Ebenezer, for me. And I have to ask you, why didn't you think I was crazy?
Well, love, I think honesty is a friend of intimacy with God. And when we're honest, it's a step closer.
Yeah.
So you were being honest.
Yeah.
Crazy never even entered my mind.
I love that so much. And I just appreciate who you were to me in that moment. It was what I needed so much. During that time, during the prayer, you just spoke such love and kindness over me. And I think I was drawn to you because when I heard you speak, I was like, that woman knows God. Like she knows the God that I want to know very, very deeply. And Alicia, I don't know how people are going to receive this, but I feel like in a culture where people have like makeup caked on and a ton of botox, I looked at you and I thought, this woman has such an authentic face. And I thought like if she looks authentic on the outside, maybe her heart is authentic.
Mm.
Maybe she really does genuinely know God the way that I want to deeply know God. So I want to ask, there's been like no question like this on the podcast, but do you have a theology on Botox, a theology on aging? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness. Tori, it's been quite a journey for me. And there's been several different pieces. So I'm not ready to write a book about it, but there are different principles that have guided me. I have the wonderful, wonderful honor of having a mentor in my life who's in her 80s. In fact, all three of my mentors were in their 80s, and one of them went to be with the Lord in the last year. But she is so very intentional about aging, in the sense of maintaining an attitude toward it that is kind to herself. And I asked her about it one time. I was like, I need to just know what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your heart, because she really connects with Jesus through walking. And now because she's losing some of her sight, she has to be careful even walking on carpet. And so there's just these ways in which her aging process is affecting the means by which she's connected with Jesus over the years. And so when I asked her about that, she said, I feel like my body is a gift from God. It's the tent that houses my spirit. And if my body does its job, it should be wearing out. And she said, so I'm going to be kind to my body, and I'm going to be thankful for how well it's carried me. And there was this, principle of kindness toward the gift of body. And that has been very meaningful for me. There was a season when I really felt like God called me to an Esther year. He said, I want you to invest in beautification. And I, of course, interpreted that as internal. I was like, oh, fantastic. We're just going to soak in the word, and we're going to do all of these things. And which was true. But he was also calling me to form more of a theology about my body, and to speak to it with kindness, to be grateful for what it's doing, the hard work it's doing in carrying me heavenward. And so I think that if I have a theology, it would be one of kindness.
Yeah. Oh.
And one that aging is a gift. I just got done speaking to a group, and I was able, to say I'm 58 years old, and I've been on a cancer journey with 3 recurrences for the last 11 of those 58. I'm so grateful that my body is carrying me. So do I still invest in makeup? Yes, I have. Today I have mascara on. Looky there.
Yes, you look beautiful.
Some mascara. I have no foundation, but I've got some lipstick on. And to me, whatever decision I'm making, I want to do it with gratitude.
Yeah.
And kindness.
Yeah. Amen.
And I think that's quite a broad range.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that we can be grateful and kind, and make some different decisions regarding beauty.
Yeah.
But if gratitude and kindness are the foundation, I think we'll still find ourselves in a healthy place.
Yeah, it's been something I've been thinking about more and more. I'm 28 right now, and you just start to. I think that this is just the start of it. And my friends, people my age, are getting Botox. My friends are, and that's something that I never really even thought of or considered. And I feel like I have to have a really good skincare routine to make my face look good for a long time. And I look back at pictures and I was like, I used to not have that wrinkle, and now I do. And so it's something that I've just been thinking, how do I do this in a good, godly way? And I love the idea of just carrying kindness as we approach aging and as we approach our bodies. You said that your mentor helped you kind of come to that conclusion. And I know that something that is a huge part of your ministry is mentorship for other people. Can you maybe tell people, I just know that there are people who are like, I have been searching for a mentor for so long. I want a mentor. I can't find one. What would you say to those people?
Yes. Oh, well, that desire in your heart is straight up biblical. We have models throughout the Old Testament and especially throughout the New Testament that life on life together helps us serve well without collapsing from the inside out. And I'm so grateful for all of the different ways in which we're growing in skills and leadership. But when we look at the headlines, people are not collapsing because of something in their gifting cluster. It's because of something that wasn't attended to in their guts. So that desire to have a mentor, straight up biblical, bravo. It's going to involve some risk taking, but I have some specific encouragements if I could share.
Yes, please.
I encourage people to sit down prayerfully and write down 3 or 4 things they'd really like to learn, 3 or 4 areas in which they'd really like to grow. Aging gracefully, intercessory prayer, patience in the family, whatever it is, be as specific as you possibly can. What are 3 or 4 areas that you're like, Lord, I think this is where you're calling me to invest for growth. Then on that paper, draw some lines between each of those and people you know of who exemplify that strength consistently, not just who teach about it. I have lived way too long and I've seen way too much.
Yes, say it again. Say it again, not people who just teach about it.
That's right, because I've seen too much to assume anything about people's private life from their public persona. So draw a line between people you know who are living it and who have been living it. And so maybe you'll have 4 or 8 names. I think one of the challenges, Tori, is that we look for somebody who's got it all. I mean, they've got it all. They are strong in all of our weaknesses. And we do have that person. His name is Jesus, and he's already volunteered to be your master mentor. So if we're looking for somebody here on earth, let's look for somebody with those strengths. Maybe there's 2 people that come to my mind when I think about, wow, they really are consistently patient with their children, or they are consistently kind in their self-talk. Then I'd give a call and say, hey, would you by chance have the opportunity to meet with me for coffee if they live locally? Get with me on FaceTime if they don't. For 30 minutes, 40 minutes, be very specific about what you're asking. You exemplify consistency in the area of kindness in your self-talk. And I think I'd really like to learn from you. Do you have an hour? Meet with them. If it goes well, if you feel like, ooh, this might be a match, then ask if they might have another time. And if that goes well, then I would do the big ask. I'd still boundary it with time, though. Mm-hmm. I've really enjoyed our 2 times together. Would you prayerfully consider meeting with me for the next 6 months? Maybe every other week or once a month even, because I would really love to just share life with you more and learn more. And so to me, it's a progression. And maybe from that, we might find somebody who's like a life mentor, but we don't have to wait for that life mentor to show up for us to be area mentored by people who we already have some kind of connection with, and they have strength in an area that we want to grow in. So what if they say no? What if they're like, hey, I don't have the time? Well, then you're in no different of a place than you were before you asked, and you've built up some muscle in risking rejection. Win. That's just a win.
Yeah, and then they can just keep trying.
That's right.
I used to really see like a mentorship as like one person. I needed to find one person who could like be it all to me. And that kept not working because people fall short, I guess, because we're people and not Jesus, like you said. And I kept kind of trying to find a mentor, and it just wasn't working out. I didn't know why. And a lot of times it was like people's schedule, my schedule. I was trying to find like those people who you said kind of in these areas. And then at some point I realized I was like, when I look at these areas in my life, I actually have these people. They just don't come in the form of one person. They come in the form of like 10 people.
Yes,
I have a great
that's right.
community. I have great leadership in my church of people who pour into me. And so once I changed my perspective of how mentorship can happen, like it doesn't have to be this one person who is the only person that mentors you, it really helped me be able to see what people were already pouring into me and what people were already giving me. And it helped me receive that. And then I really wanted a mentor in this space. Sometimes this work can be a little strange, and I wanted someone who could walk with me through it. And I was like, Lord, bring me a mentor, someone in this space. Kept kind of asking people, and it was just like, didn't happen. Our lives are just full when they're doing this kind of work. And then finally, I got a mentor, and this is just like maybe like 6 months ago. And it was so perfect because I had to have a mentor for seminary in this class that I'm taking. And I really felt like during this time, I realized that I think that God didn't give me like that one person clear mentor in this space because I really think he wanted to push me to see him as like the one true mentor. Like he is the discipler of disciples. And I feel like he was like, I want you to follow me first. And so then whatever anybody else says, whatever any other mentor tells you, it's filtered through me as your first and ultimate discipler. And seeing things that way has just really helped me, I think, also temper the expectations for what anyone who's mentoring me or leading me here on earth is going to do. And I mean temper expectations because then I'm not putting all this unhealthy weight on them that they have to carry. And that's when mentorship it's sustainable, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we're humans being mentored by humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so we stand shoulder to shoulder. We face our master mentor together. And I find that model is something that is transformative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to read a quote from one of your books.
Okay.
It says, Jesus's true strength was not revealed in his ability to teach and lead the multitudes. It was manifested in his willingness to make himself nothing, to suffer and to die. I had enough strength to exhaust myself studying, mentoring, and teaching, but I did not possess sufficient strength to be nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me when you wrote that, what you were going through, and how do we, I know that this book, it was really about decreasing ourselves and allowing more of God in our lives. And how do we do that?
Two-part question. Let me start at the beginning.
Yes.
But if I forget the second one, you remind me.
Okay.
The context in which that passage was written. Jesus had called me away from my very first sabbatical, Tori. I was in my late 20s. I had been in traditional full-time ministry for probably seven years. And he called me to take a sabbatical, but nobody was taking a sabbatical at that time. Sabbaticals were not in vogue at that time. Sabbaticals were things that really, really old college professors had to do because they needed to publish one more thing. And so I said, Lord, thanks so much, but I'm fine. And he kept pressing me. And the image that came to my mind, Tori, was, like those old proverbial treasure cave, pirate's cove type kind of things, where there's this cave and it's stuffed with treasure. And the Lord said to me that, your spirit's supposed to be like a really full, beautiful treasure cave, but you're down to your last pearl.
Wow.
And if you keep going, you one day will wake up and find yourself utterly empty. And it's a whole lot harder to get back to full once you've hit empty. And so it was a matter of obedience at that time. And I gave my ministry responsibilities to other people, and I carved out a year to take a sabbatical. I had no idea how to do that. There weren't like books on sabbating,
Right. Yeah.
And so Jesus and I slept a lot and read the Bible a lot, journaled a lot, spent a lot of time at the piano. And at first I felt like it was this outrageous luxury that I was almost embarrassed, because I told the Lord I haven't lived enough or served enough to have anything to sabbat over. But it wound up being a lifesaver because, Tori, I didn't realize it because I loved what I was doing so much, but I was burning the candle at both ends, putting in way, way too many hours because I just loved sharing Jesus with people. And I loved mentoring, and I loved mentoring whoever, would come on that college campus. I'm game. You want to meet? Let's meet. You want to meet till 2 a.m? Let's meet till 2 a.m. And I was exhausting myself serving. And I am absolutely certain that had the Lord not intervened, I would have hit burnout or breakdown within a couple of years in my early 30s. So that was the context in which this happened. I began my sabbatical with a 9-day prayer retreat in the desert of Arizona, walking around with tears in my eyes, crying over something I couldn't even name. I kept going in my mind through that checklist we have of how to keep our faith fresh. Worship, check. Repentance, check. Study, check. Intercession, check. Serving, check. And all the checks kept helping me help everybody else grow. But inside, I was drier than the desert I was walking in. And so when I kept walking around at the stations of the cross in that desert, I started realizing Jesus could have stopped the pain with one word at any point in time. Enough is all he had to say, and it would have ended. But he kept taking this posture of, the only thing I could call it was holy weakness. And that's when that revelation hit me. That is true strength.
I did that because that is literally my next question. I was like,
holy weakness, there it is. Yes. Yeah. Holy weakness is what he exemplified. So, we think of, Jesus was powerful. He walked on water. Jesus was powerful. He ministered to multitudes. But his real strength was revealed in his willingness to empty himself and become nothing. In the Greek, that word is knoo, and it means to become insignificant. Jesus had the strength to appear to be less in order to be able to do more. And I realized that's the kind of strength I need to start pursuing, or else I'm going to serve myself into exhaustion and burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said God asked me to fast mental and physical strength, and instead invited me into what I refer to as a holy weakness. And that's what I was going to ask you. What is holy weakness, and how do we embrace that? Especially, I do not know anyone that takes sabbaticals. I never heard of. I have amazing ministers in my life, and I've never actually seen them go on sabbatical. I'm realizing when you said that, and I'll be honest, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I've never thought about what a sabbatical might even look like for me or my ministry. So how do we embrace that holy weakness?
Yes. Well, I'm so grateful, Tori, that the church is starting to gain some ground in sabbaticaling or in just giving people more rest, more space. I'm regularly hearing people in their 30s now saying, hey, my church is giving me a sabbatical. And now what they mean by that is that they're getting 4 weeks off. And that's fantastic. I might call that a long vacation because honestly, it takes about 3 months minimum to wind down and then find a new pace. And so I love it when we can gift people with at least 3 months. I'm thrilled with 6. Oh my goodness, a year. Hallelujah. But in order for us to do that, we have to define fruitfulness as more than just visible productivity. I was sitting around one of those meetings that people should never invite Alicia Britt Chole to. It's really, you should never give me a seat at the table. And they were talking about the growth of the church and what we needed to do to grow the church, capital C church.
Yeah.
And I was really super quiet because my brain I process differently. My whole focus, the area that people come to me to grow is on sustainable nearness with God. And so they finally said, Alicia, we'd really like to know what you think. I'm like, I'm not sure that it is consistent with where God seems to be leading you all. And they said, no, Alicia, we'd really like to hear what you think.
You're like, I'm not sure you do want to know what I think.
I'm really not sure. I think I may mess this whole thing up. You guys have a plan. And I said, perhaps what we really need to do to grow the church is to give everybody permission to decrease for a couple of years and to call that growth. Because there's different types of growth, even in a plant. We celebrate when all the roses are there, but the rose bush is only sustainably beautiful if it also has a different type of growth that we call pruning, that we cut back. And so can we give people permission to cut back in the name of health, to cut back in the name of growth for the sake of producing long term? We have to engage in seasons, not just of increase. We keep thinking that obedience or faith leads us into continual increase. But continual increase is absolutely unsustainable. We don't even have examples in nature of that. We have examples in nature of growth and then of quieter seasons. The beginning of Anonymous, that first prologue, we talk about winter seasons where we're bare, but bare isn't a synonym for barren. There is a rest that we have to enter into, cycles of visible fruitfulness and intentional rest. So I think we need to redefine growth, Tori. We need to be giving each other permission for a different type of growth, maybe an internal growth that's less visible, but perhaps more valuable for the sake of people's long-term health.
Mm-hmm. Do you happen to have indicators that people can feel in their bodies or in their hearts or in their minds that kind of point to you need rest, you're not growing?
Yes.
What are those?
I would say 2 right off the top of my head: negative self-talk and an inability to be silent and still. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about introversion, extroversion here. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, that's a good distinction.
I am talking about when, man, if you even have space, boy, you've got to cram it with something else. Mm-hmm. That there is almost this resistance, and it may even be in the name of productivity, to letting all of your emotions catch up with you. So instead of resting and letting everything catch up and having to deal with it and integrate it, we just do another wonderful thing to keep moving forward.
It makes me think of, it's either in Anonymous or 40 Days of Decrease. You described Jesus as, I just thought it was 2 interesting ways to, adjectives to use for the character of Jesus. You said unhurried and then uncluttered. Can you explain, when we're trying to reflect Jesus in our lives, how can we see that in him? And also, how can we function in a way that is unhurried and uncluttered?
Yes. I can answer that in terms of a discipline that's helped me, or I can describe it more. What would best serve your purposes?
I think I want to know, what is it, I don't even know what it means for Jesus to be uncluttered. I think I understand unhurried, and that's only by reading the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which absolutely wrecked me. And I think I would also love to hear disciplines. I think that would encourage people and help people know what steps should I take?
Yes. Okay. I think that when I speak of Jesus's life being uncluttered, he does not present as continuously distracted. He presents as very present and very focused. So it's like there was an internal agenda that he and his Father were following. It did not cause him to be aloof. In fact, he was wonderfully tangible. very tactile, this Jesus, and very present. That's why John could say that which we have touched, that which we have heard, that which we have seen. Jesus was gloriously present. And so by uncluttered, I mean present and undistracted from the humans near him and from the agenda that him and his Father were pursuing. There was a peaceful pace to Jesus. And so the primary discipline for me, Tori, that is helping me grow towards that, because I'll keep growing until I see him, right? I'm going to grow towards that, is a discipline I would call life in the plural. And if I ever have the opportunity to share anything with people, and there's one thing that I want them to remember above anything else, it would be this discipline. So what I mean by life in the plural is a life in our thought theater that reflects the theological reality we have that we're never alone. People ask, well, what difference did the cross make, Old Testament, New Testament? In a word, access. Now, God's presence is not just in a temple or at a certain place. Jesus says, I will be in you. I am with you. I will be in you. Christ in us, the hope of glory. I am with you always to the very end of the age. Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. So wherever anybody is right now, their faith in Jesus means that Jesus is always present to them, always. So our theological reality is, I'm never alone, never alone. So faith is really a duet. It's not a solo. Faith is this glorious relational duet with us and our ever-present Jesus. And yet in our minds, we live it like a solo. We speak in the singular, not in the plural. I am with Tori in this podcast. I brushed my teeth. Because I have a dentist appointment right after this podcast with Tori. We speak in I, singular. So what I mean by life in the plural is that we shift the talk in our mind from I to we.
Mm-hmm.
I am not with Tori. Jesus and I are with Tori.
Yeah.
I don't have a dentist appointment after this. Jesus and I have a dentist appointment after this. I don't have to pay my taxes in April. Jesus and I have to pay my taxes in April. I'm not cleaning up after my dog's, doo-doo. Jesus and I are going to clean up after the puppy. It's Jesus and I, Jesus and I, Jesus and I, because that's my theological reality. So every time I move from the singular to the plural, I'm correcting my thought life to be more aligned with my theological reality. And it changes everything, Tori. I mean, we can't wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, wow, Jesus and I, we are ugly today. It changes it. It changes how we interact with others. Not only our self-talk, but our talk toward others. At that red light that's now green, and whoever the beloved soul in front of us is still on their phone. We can't roll down the window and say, hey, buddy, Jesus and I think you're an idiot. Get off the road. It begins to edit our thoughts, which edit our feelings, which edit our words to reflect the reality that we're never alone. And so it's not do I want to say yes to something? Because I want to say yes to something all the time, Tori. But when I say, Jesus, do you and I need to say yes to this, or do we need to say no to this? He has my whole self in mind. He knows about the commitments I've already made. He knows about the children and what they're going to be needing in the next few months. So I find that when I say yes or no in the plural instead of just in the singular, I live more of an unhurried, uncluttered life.
Yes. Jesus and I am taking that. Jesus and I are taking that with us.
Yes,
that is so, so refreshing. Just you saying it and me like picturing doing life with Jesus. Like I can't even help. It's like you can't help but smile. You're like, yes. I'm brushing my teeth. Me and Jesus are brushing.
That's right.
Like we're doing this together. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alicia. I appreciate all of your wisdom, your willingness to share it, your beauty of communication. I feel just so at rest and at peace, even when you speak. And it's not, I think this kind of thing that you're talking about, it can be communicated in such a shameful way that makes people, kind of like cower and think, oh no, I'm doing this all wrong. And you speak with such compassion. And I appreciate that so much because Jesus looks upon the people with compassion. And it's so
Yes.
clear that you have that heart. I love you.
I love you too, Tori. Hope to have more time together in the future, hon.
Thank you.